Welcome to Pantheon. I have a very special show this week as I'm joined by Eddie G and the very famous David Roenick, Schlow, lead writer of Pantheon. How are you doing?
Yes,
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
we're
We're
doing
doing great. We're doing
very
really great.
excited to have you, man. Finally in person, in living color, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. We're really stoked here to be able to pick your brain a little bit, get some information maybe over to the audience about stuff that's happening and everything. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do at Pantheon right now?
Sure. Right now, I'm working on essentially working with J.N. Gerhardt and taking his lore and bringing it alive in the game. We just added a new designer, Scott, who will be helping me out as well. So we've got the dream team is coming together as far as the writing's going. But yeah, mostly just quests. We're working on bringing the world to life. When you visit towns, talking to people, that sort of stuff starting to come alive. The smaller things, lore pings, anything that's bringing the history of the game to the player. We're working on right now.
Let me ask you off the bat, like for a person who just started playing, or maybe an experienced player, what is a lore ping? What is that all about?
Yeah, so Pantheon's different than a lot of the other MMOs or games out there. We have a system called Perception, and the way that it works, it's intended to work similar to a DM in Dungeons and Dragons, where when you interact with whether it's a player, an NPC or an area in the game, you're going to get you're perceiving something. A message is going to pop up and it'll tell you a little bit about the situation, whether it's explaining some history of the world, explaining how a character is relating to you. Sometimes we have interactable objects that when you pass by them, maybe it starts a quest. So we're really getting into the perception side of things. And so yeah, lore ping would be in that realm.
Okay.
Very cool. So, kind of globally, in the future of Pantheon at least, how do you see Pantheon telling the story? Is it mainly perception, quests, a mix?
Yeah, it'll be a mix. I mean, you'll have your traditional milk run quests, as we like to call them. Where you just kind of you'll interact with an NPC. They'll give you a quest. You go out and do it, and come back to them. What we're trying to innovate on is more dynamic storytelling, where I think a lot of these games that we've played, they make you out to be the hero, right? In this in our vision of how we want to tell stories and their design is kind of you're a guy, you're just Joe Schmo
Yeah.
walking around the world, and so you know lore and quests will be delivered that way. You may overhear a conversation and it flags you for something that's coming later, and you may not even know it. That's something for the players because they're going to have to figure out for themselves. You overhear a conversation and then you follow instructions, say, based on that conversation, and it leads you down an entire quest line. You're a keeper. And so eventually those lore keepers will get, hopefully, if everything goes well, we still want to put it in the game. We'll see if it happens. They'll get more access to other things that if you're not a keeper, that will be another way of we're delivering quests and information. But generally it'll be, your standard milk run quests and the perception things for now anyway. So
Well, that's very interesting and very nuanced as opposed to other MMOs where, like you said, and I like the whole aspect of you're not some superhero. You're basically just some Joe Schmo, roaming around the world, and you might get set on something, a quest that's, it's very beneficial.
yeah, that was something, it's funny. The Eldrin quest line for the Ash Breathers Enclave was just, released, and it's a bigger quest. It's a longer quest. And we were sort of heading down a traditional route with that. And then Joppa sort of came in and was like, explained what his vision was as far as that goes, as far as like you're just a Joe Schmo, you're just a guy in the world. How are these characters aren't just going to all of a sudden talk to you? How would you get them to talk to you? So it was really Joppa and JN as well, who really challenged me, and then eventually Scott, now with this next one that we're working on, to think outside the box, to think about how do you get people sort of on the ride without the flashing lights,
Yeah.
without the, we already kind of obviously stray from any kind of question marks or any of that sort of indication, like, hey, there's a quest here. And now this is next level where it's kind of, you're overhearing conversations, or with Eldrin, it's a little, I can talk about it because it's a little spoiled, but there's something that happens in the Enclave that allows you to pick up a backpack, and then that starts that entire quest line. So yeah, again, it was really Joppa who challenged us to really think about, how do you innovate quest line? How do you make this a little different? How do you make it so that you're just a person in the world? And how do you get these people to talk to you? What are you doing to get them to talk to you? Instead of just, hey, do these quests for me and then you'll earn my trust. It's not entirely, we have some of that.
So would you say that there's any influences? Because there's a lot of RPGs and a lot of games that have a lot of ways to tell a story. And would you say that you have any influences, or at least are the other developers and stuff with Pantheon? Are there any other games that are really influencing the way you're telling the story?
Well, Joppa's made no secret that he's a big Zelda fan, and Breath of the Wild has obviously played a big influence, not just on the narrative, but just in terms of game design in general. I grew up on EverQuest. EverQuest Online Adventures actually was my first MMO, and then I actually played EverQuest after. A lot of those older quests, those longer ones, where it's not so obvious, I think really have played a major role in terms of influence and how we go about thinking about things. I think Dungeons and Dragons in general, going back to pen and paper, with the perception system in particular, it's been, how do you get a DM voice? How are you telling story? And the perception system has really allowed us to play the role of the dungeon master. And I don't think we've really seen that too much in other games, even in D&D games. So
I think that's what separates you guys from the rest of the pack. You're borrowing from the old, but you're also creating the new, which, let's face it, in this genre hasn't really been done. It's a new thing, and I think in the end, it's going to separate you from the rest of the pack. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I play this game 6 to 7 hours a day. I'm retired, so I got that kind of time. And I'm really enjoying what you guys are putting forth. And you're not just doing this cookie cutter. Like, I like all the new features and all the features that are far and above the other games that are out there.
And I think it's only going to get better, especially now with Scott here. It's another set of hands, but he has a really good mind. He gelled immediately with the team. What we're working on in an abstract way is sort of the way that television handles their writing, which is, we've created a writer's room. Talk about a major quest line. It starts obviously with JN. Let's be honest. Like, JN, I think you call me the lead writer. I think technically JN's the lead writer. Oh. My title is like design narrative.
Oh,
but JN, no. I mean, I just want to give credit where credit's due, because JN built the world, the lore of this world. JN built everything, and so for when we come up with quests and when we write story, it's just a way for Scott and I to honor what JN has built. JN is kind of a big picture guy, and then we're able to kind of take the information that he wants and distill it into play. He never really played MMOs. He never played these kind of games. So he's more of like a student of, Tolkien or, George R. R. Martin. I don't want to put, he's going to be like, I hate those authors later on. I would say like he's very well read. And I think a lot of his influences come from novels and literature. And even classic literature, I forgot what we were talking about the other day, but it was some classic literature reference, and we were trying to figure out how to put that in game. But it starts with him, and then it's Scott and I who distill it in terms of like how I write screenplays, I write television pilots, so my version of storytelling comes from that, school where it's dialogue and story, and so we work really well together because JN has the big picture stuff, and then again we're able to distill it and kind of bring it to the players.
How many people are on the team? And I think you mentioned 3 were on the writing side. How many people are on the team and actively working, and how many times a week do you guys meet?
I mean, I don't even know the number, to be honest with you. I don't know what the official number is. I don't want to get in trouble by saying.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because we have a lot of people, myself included, actually, who are part time, and then we have a bunch of full time employees. I know for the design team, which includes, not just the narrative and the lore, but crafting, which is Nefel. Then we have Cody working on itemization. We have Mark working on abilities, and obviously Joppa runs the show and he has his hands in everything. Which, by the way, if you're going to talk about the writing team, you got to include Joppa, because he does. Yeah. When we were coming up with the Eldrin quest line, and then we're working on a new longer one now when we released Black Rose Keep. Jop is heavily involved as well. He'll come in and he acts kind of as a showrunner, is the best way I can explain it.
Okay.
Like, we have our ideas, we take it, we flesh it out, we outline it. Sometimes we fully outline it, where it's like, this is the exact steps that you take, and then we'll bring it to Joppa and he'll weigh in. And then there's the functionality part of it as well, which sometimes when you write something and then you're actually adding it to the game, sometimes what you've written doesn't necessarily translate. So we're doing some editing on the fly, and as far as the writing goes, and Nefel was actually really helpful this time around with inputting the Eldrin quest line. And there were things where I'd be like, okay, at this point, like, I want a dragon to spawn. Spoiler alert. What I want to happen is we want to light these braziers before he spawns, and that's how you know to do it. Again, for the spoilers, it's out there a little bit. I'll only spoil that part. But Nefel was really good about, like, this is how we're going to functionality, do with the tools that we have. And then sometimes it doesn't work. It's like, he'll come back to me and be like, hey, I can't put this in. There's a lot of teamwork going on. Scott is also very good. Our system is fine, but it's not my specialty. I don't have much programming experience. So
well, you're a storyteller. You're a master storyteller. So that's
I don't know about master, but
I don't know.
My point being, it's a team effort, right? So then it's like this last quest line, like, we needed special effects for things, so that's when Cody would get involved. Then we need abilities for these creatures that we're creating, and then Mark gets involved, and Convo is like big picture guy as well. A lot of the Ash Breathers, that whole situation came from his brain. A lot of what we're doing from BRK is coming from him as well. He's really good at thinking about game design from the player perspective. And so a lot of, and Ash Breathers in particular, the trenches were inspired by a trip that he took to Europe. So it's like, and then obviously there's programming, we have a lot of, Kyle's, Kyle, and, we have a lot of good Steve, obviously, from EverQuest. We have a lot of, they're involved too in terms of functionality. So really, it's like, so when we talk about quest stuff in particular, and lore and pings, and it's not just us writing, it's really is a team situation where we have so many hands getting involved to make these things happen.
Cool. So kind of looking at the future and Pantheon when it's finished, at least, do you see the storyline unraveling easily for the new player, or is it something we're going to have to kind of look for and search for inside of quests?
I think again, we'll go back to it'll be a mix, right? The last thing you want to do is ostracize new players. These games thrive on new community members and sort of keeping the community intact and active. And so you don't want to turn anybody off. So, I'm hoping, and to be discussed, that, we have a good onboarding process, but then the further on, you get along, quest lines won't be obvious at all. And it will, the Eldrin one was a good example.
Yeah.
This next one that's coming for BRK may be even less obvious than Eldrin was, but the players found it. I think that's the joy for me as a designer, and probably for the other team members as well. It's watching the players discover these things, and I'm constantly getting direct messages saying, like, oh my God, like, I just finished this part, like, that was so cool, and like, love that we just, that it's not so obvious, and and now there are some of the players are on the final part of that Eldrin quest line, and so had a lot of positive feedback. Some some natural complaining about some bottlenecking.
Oh, there's always going to be that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think overall the players were happy. The final part to that quest is super challenging, and I think the players are finding it challenging, and I think that's what they want. And that was very much like the entire team weighing in, and Joppa and Mark really building out the abilities for these, this final part. So
I would say you reached your goal, because me and Rake are in the same guild on the Izok Imperials on Vale of Azeris. And when we were doing it, it almost felt like we were in a movie. Like we were immersed in the movie. We're all kind of sharing this experience together. And, why didn't one guy see the book? Well, we had to figure out why he couldn't see the book. And then we kind of puzzled it out. And that's what it was. It was totally immersive. And we were all just jazzed, which was weird in a way, but it was what we were here for. This is why we play the game. So kudos to you guys, and for doing that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and it's one of the challenges, obviously, of the the world we live in now is spoilers come out almost immediately. Like back in the day, it'd be the guilds would be very protective of
all info
secrets, and now there's definitely some bragging rights of we did it first. I mean, there was always that, but to the point where they're spoiling things. But that's okay. We know it's coming. We hope that a lot of the guilds have actually been respectful and not done that. Respectful of the community. Honestly, for us, we're like, whatever you guys want to do, you guys are the players, you decide. I'll harken back to when I was playing EverQuest Online Adventures, again, my first MMO, and they had, the game was kind of in full swing, and they had released a series of quest lines. I think it was for like a level 17 or 23 armor quest, and we were a little past that. I always remember that experience of like, there's nothing out there. There's no information on this. We have to figure this out. Let's be the first people to figure this out. And there's a rush to that. And I think, with some of these larger quest lines that we're doing, people are starting to feel that rush now. I hope that they also still have entertainment value enough that once they are spoiled, when you're going through it as a player later, it's still a fun read and still, information about the game.
Yeah. And, speaking from personal experience, at least, there's a difference really between reading on an article online that explains the quest dialogue to you versus clicking the NPC and picking up the items and actually figuring out, why is this item over here? And why does this NPC say things the way that they say it? So it's a different kind of feel to it. So, I mean, you really get that immersion in it. And I know, like Eddie and I, when we were doing the Eldrin quest, theory crafting and stuff when you're in channels and stuff, that really brings the game to life for us. And we really appreciate that about Pantheon.
I'm also hoping with that one in particular that there's enough of action, because like the lore is great, but then like you want those moments of like, oh my God, these things are coming at us. What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
While you're playing. Even when you're expecting it, that it's still, fun and entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's things even like, for instance, in the first release of the Ash Breathers, there's a few spawned named mobs, and that you don't know what's going to happen with that. And you're like, the first time we fought the witch from the hair, that was like, oh my, she starts fearing us. Nobody else fought her before. It was a whole fun jazz thing we had to deal with.
We were like, oh boy, what's going to happen? And even some of the name mobs in the trenches, they say things after they die, and you're like, huh, is this related to the lady? I think one of the mobs says something about the ovens, and you're like, oh, does that have to do with the lady who works in the bakery in Skydurban? And like, so you're always thinking, and that's what it's all about. It's like you are adventuring, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and as we build out the world and as we build out these towns, you're definitely going to see a lot more of that kind of thing. You'll see somebody has the same last name as somebody in another town, and you're like, oh, these guys must be brothers. Like, what's going on there? That kind of, so Brad, from the get-go, had always said, he wanted to build a home. It wasn't just a game world. He wanted it to feel like home for people. And I think that, for me personally, that's always been a good guiding light.
Right.
It's like, it's not just, go from point A to point B, do this, we want to bring life to this thing. And we're getting there. We have a lot of work to do, for sure. But I think some of it's starting to come together.
While you're talking about Brad, the late great Brad McQuaid, uh, you knew him when he was alive and helping with the game. What kind of man was he? He's kind of like this
Yeah.
legend in our mind. Like he is the guy who did it all. He's the creator, as they would say. What kind of guy was he? That vision that you have, that he's given you that guiding light, that's a great vision to have. What kind of guy was he?
That's a great question. I mean, Brad was always a big advocate of mine, right from even from the get go. The whole reason why I got involved in the game was they had launched the Kickstarter. I'm a creative director for my day job, and their graphics were terrible. Like their graphic design stuff was awful, and I emailed Brad, and I was just like, hey, listen, like your stuff is terrible. Like let me help you. Let me help you. And and so that's how I got involved in the game in the first place. And I had spent, the majority of my time up until probably when I came back from the furlough I was on the marketing side. I was doing streaming, before that I was doing like a lot of ads and stuff. But Brad was always like trying to get me involved and doing other things. And like, he was a really good dude. I remember we went to PAX East, and it was a small, little Airbnb, and me, Convo, Joppa, and Brad were in there. And I remember like just being up really late at night after the first day of the show and just talking, about games and what we wanted to do with Pantheon. And I think one of Brad's strengths, at least, I only know him obviously from Pantheon. He had a whole, I think if you ask people who knew him from other games, they may have a different opinion of Brad or a different point of view of Brad. But I think one of Brad's greatest strengths from what I've knew him was he was really good about letting people kind of blossom, and I think while he oversaw a lot of what we were doing, he really let Joppa, take the reins as far as the creative direction goes. And the game is very much the both of them in a lot of ways. Obviously the core and foundation starts with Brad, but Joppa really took it to another level, and I think Brad was always gracious and enough to allow that to happen.
That speaks a lot to him, because when you're a heavy hitter like he was, some heavy hitters will not allow other people. They're control freak. But the fact that he let everybody blossom and kind of bring their own thing and take the reins, even, it speaks to his character and what a great guy he was.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously super missed. Somehow we're still here and we persevered, and just while we're just talking about Brad.
I mean, you guys are an independent game company. I mean, you're not some big, and the fact that you persevered and delivered a product so far that's got me hooked says something. You guys are doing a great job, and it's good that you've weathered the storms.
Yeah, I think the dedication from the team, if nothing else, is there. A lot of us have been around for a while and get past the naysayers, and everyone had said we were vaporware for a while, but you're always kind of like, it's always the next thing. Oh, first you're vaporware, then you're never going to deliver an EA product, and it's like you're never going to release, and we keep proving everybody wrong. It may not be on people's timetables, but we are delivering. I think we have a good roadmap now. I think anybody would be fooling themselves if they didn't admit that we had some stutter steps, but I do feel like we're finally in a really good place, and as far as what the game's future looks like.
So in terms of the future, though, of the game, do you, when the product is finished and everything's said and done, do you envision telling the story at all with voice actors or cinematics in any way, or is that kind of not really the bag here?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if we're being honest, I don't think that,
Well, if you're hiring, I'm up. I have a very deep and resonant voice.
Yeah. I'm like on this little mic. I am not I'll tell you what, if we have any voiceovers, I am not going to be on there. That's for sure.
You're not that bad.
I think you'd be fine.
Maybe I'll be like one of the children that like runs through town or something. I'll be like, hey guys.
Hi.
But no, I don't. We have our budget's limited, and I think resource wise, I mean, it's not my area of expertise, so I don't think that's in the plans. As far as I know, that's not in the plans. Maybe we'll have a cinematic at some point. Who knows? But I can't see voice acting, and we're not building the quests and the dialogue within the game to do that. So.
Mhm.
I think the more these games get more realistic in a way, the less fun they become because your imagination gets thrown out the window.
Right,
It's like
yeah.
the basic graphics of EQ still hold up for some people because it's more forgiving in a lot of ways. You're filling in the blanks with what your brain is
Mhm.
putting there. And I think with voice acting, it's very similar. It's like, I remember EQ2 put Heather Graham's voice as one of the characters, and
really?
it's
I don't
just
know.
totally. Oh yeah, she played.
Roller Girl was a.
Yeah, she played Fiona V, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't know
I
that.
think so. Yeah, and Christopher, what's his name? Count Dooku. What's his name?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. I think he played the Freeport whatever guy. I forgot the names.
Well, yeah,
Sorry, EQ. My point being was it's hard, especially if you get named actors, right? It's like fantasy setting, and I'm picturing Roller Girl.
Yeah.
So it's just.
I didn't quite make sense.
Kind of looking at how you develop the game and how you develop a lot of other things. I know you've got something else cooking on the books as well right now. I believe you have a graphic novel coming out. Is that right?
What?
In a 1950s influenced retro-futuristic New York City, where the Kennedy brothers never died and monorails are the city's main form of transportation, Flynn Hawking is a brilliant robotics engineer on the cusp of marrying his sweetheart. But on the night of his engagement party, Flynn's estranged father returns and reveals their utopia is not what it seems, thus dragging him into events that will change his life forever. Jackrabbit, a new 64-page science fiction graphic novel from Siri Lane Books.
I do. Jackrabbit is currently actually on Kickstarter as we speak. It's a science fiction graphic novel. I liked, the comps I would say would be like it's Fallout meets The Matrix.
Just the first comic you've done, or have you done several?
So I've written a few screenplays and television pilots. This was a TV pilot that, was getting a lot of attention. It won Slamdance Film Festival a couple of years back, the TV category. Well, this is a huge undertaking as far as finance goes. And, nobody's really looking at anything unless it's a pre-established IP. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to make it a pre-established IP. So, and you can't see my comics maybe. I'm a big comic book fan. So it was always an option for me to consider doing it as a graphic novel. So, book one is what's out now. It's a 64-page book. It is about, I'd say, maybe act one of the TV pilot, where it's about a gifted robotics engineer whose estranged father returns and basically tells him that this 1950s inspired utopia world that he lives in, where like the Kennedys are still alive and monorails are like the main form of transportation, that it's all that something's not right, that it's all fake, and that he's the only kind of resistance against this. He's a key factor in sort of turning the tables. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you like action and you like sci-fi and you like, my illustrator is this guy Utku Yavaska, and he's from Lisbon and he's fantastic.
It looks great, just that one shot. It reminds me a lot of the World's Fair that we had here in New York in '64 with like that certain kind of, I think they call it like Googie architecture or something like that.
Mm.
And just that futuristic look, like that picture right there.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Now, I was born in '65, so I was in my mom's belly when they had that in Queens. But that's my jam. I love that kind of look and that whole era. I remember seeing that movie with what the hell's his name? The movie where he goes back and he's going to try to save Kennedy from getting shot. it's a year. I forget whatever it was. But that reminds me, a lot of that time period really resonates with me.
Yeah.
I really love that time period.
Yeah, me too. I love retrofuturism. I think that they had such a positive outlook, and obviously things didn't turn out quite the way they would have expected it to. Some things, yes, in evolved ways, right? Like they had video phones, not quite the way we have iPads or
Right.
FaceTime, but yeah, it's just like it was this is sort of like an idealized version of the future, and very much in that retro future 1950s style. And in fact, part of the reason that I chose Utku as my artist was because I thought he did a really good job of making it not like modern looking comics, more that retro looking comic, which I thought the style really fit. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, I think that the World's Fair was a huge influence.
It's funny, Dave, because I actually have a board game from the World's Fair. I collect vintage board games.
Oh wow!
And basically, it's based on all the exhibits that were there.
Oh, that's amazing!
And it's cool. It's super cool. And I actually have like the score sheets with the people who actually played it in the '60s. So I'm like looking at people. Wow, these people have great handwriting. You're like, wow, things have really changed in this world.
But yeah, so this would be like the world that our main character Flynn lives in. It was, imagine if like the 50s had continued on, and this actually takes place like at the eve of the millennium. It's like 1999, but from this alternate timeline-y sort of thing, where it's like if the 50s had continued with their idealized version of the future. But as we again, I don't want to spoil too much, but as you read the comic, we find all is not as it seems.
Yes. Yeah, and from what I know, and at least what you've told me a little bit about the comic, it seems really cool. I mean, like a deep sci-fi thriller with a deep rabbit hole, no pun intended. But it seems like it's real. It's not your average kind of just this is this guy and his father or whatever. But it seems really cool. It seems like it pulls a lot of elements from a lot of really liked sci-fi genres and existing things, and it really melds them together in a nice, fashionable way.
Yeah, I agree. I that definitely, like I said, like the Fallout, The Matrix, Battlestar Galactica, all heavily influenced this, as well as the futuristic 1950 stuff. But I think I think, and you get more into this into book 2 and as the story continues, but there's a lot of like plot twists and turns and things that you're not expecting. Book 1's kind of the setup a little bit, but I hope, my hope is that you relate to Flynn as a character, as somebody who's going, he's about to marry his sweetheart when all this goes down. He's estranged from his father, so there's a lot of grounded emotional character stuff going on too, as well as the sci-fi.
It brings the human element into it. Very cool. Very cool.
Now, how long? Like, I'm not a comic book guy. How long is it's book 1? How long is the first comic? How many pages? I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, so I mean, at traditional comics, generally around 20 to 24. Our book is 64 pages, so it's more graphic novel than comic book. So, like I said, book 1 kind of is like the first act of the script. Just because we couldn't really find I would have loved to have just done a 22-page comic and then kept it going from there, but I couldn't find a natural breaking point in the story. So I just decided instead to make this first arc, break it into 3 books. And so, yeah, it'll probably be 3 books of about 60 to 64 pages each.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to buy it. I can't wait till it's actually for sale to figure out how the whole thing kind of turns out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think we have like 17 days left on the Kickstarter. So, and then right after that, we'll go right to print, and the books will hopefully be out by, I want to say, either end of September or beginning of October. So, which is exciting, super exciting for me.
Yeah.
It's like I went to art school. I wanted to draw comic books. I quickly realized that that is a very difficult career to maintain, and so I switched over to graphic design and art direction. But I always wanted to make my own comic, and so this is cool. It's a life dream for me. So it's cool.
Well, yeah, and after the Kickstarter, what's like the next step for you and in this exciting time?
So we're already talking about starting book 2. I mean, we've funded the Kickstarter is officially funded, meaning we'll get the money, which is great. But now we're working on stretch goals, and every dollar that we earn on the Kickstarter, helps me pay for creating issue 2 and getting it out sooner. So, I mean, book 2. So book 1, like when the Kickstarter ends, like I said, the printing will hopefully happen within a month. And then we're like I said, we're already starting to work on book 2. And then, so depending on how quickly we can get that out, keep you posted on that one.
Well, it looks great. It looks great. And that movie I was thinking of, it was driving me crazy. James Franco. It was a mini series called 11/22/63.
Okay.
Check it out.
All right.
It's it's a Stephen King thing. So, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Nice. I'll check it out.
Yeah, sure. And they basically try to save Kennedy, which is good.
Love
anyway,
it.
I had to get that off. I can't let things hang. I've got to figure it out. I was Googling while you were talking. I'm sorry.
No, I would be the same exact way.
Yeah.
My wife I'll be like 45 minutes past a point in a conversation, and I would not have heard a word my wife had said. Drives her crazy because I'm like, oh, it's this thing.
Right.
She's like, you've been sitting here thinking about that for 45 minutes? I was like, maybe.
At least now, which a lot of times we'll be sitting around the table and like, oh, we got to find this out. Somebody Google it. Now we play the game where nobody can Google it. But as you get older, it takes longer and longer to recall the memory or the subject you were talking about.
Yeah. So, like I said, these Pantheon fans, they've seen me age over the years. So,
well, I gotta say, your hair is in fine fiddle, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
Let me tell you that.
Yeah, thanks.
I know you get joshed. You told me before the show, but listen, I think they're envious.
Yeah,
I am.
You certainly are. I'm only kidding. So this looks great. I mean, I personally do not read graphic novels, but I think I'm going to read this one, ladies and gentlemen.
Cool, thank you.
It's right up my alley.
And
if you're a comic fan or you're a fan of sci-fi, definitely check it out.
I know I will, and we're definitely going to put a link to the Kickstarter in the description of the video, so
awesome.
They can check that out.
Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And anything else that you want to share with us about maybe something upcoming? You want to talk a little bit about Black Rose?
What level content will
so
be?
So it starts
Black Rose Keep, BRK. If you people don't know, us in the biz we say BRK.
BRK.
It'll be 15 to 35, I believe, with a raid target that'll be a slightly higher level. In my opinion, it's probably the most fleshed out zone we have thus far, or fleshed out area, just as far as like the little details. I think some, we were obviously rushed into EA a little bit, and I think we're gonna, there's a lot of stuff that we plan on going back and getting back into. Areas we'll go back to. I think this one feels like a good sort of example of what things are going to look like going forward. There's a lot of little details. There's a lot of named for those people who like that. Good. This zone itself is way bigger than I had anticipated it to be, so I'm imagining the players will feel the same way. It's exciting. We've been working. The team's been working super, super hard. All areas of the team. I mean, the art team has been crushing it. I think it looks fantastic. We'll see how much. We were finishing up Ash Breathers, so we're a step behind the art team. So we'll see how much gets in this first pass as far as lore and pings and quests go. But they will get there. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a really cool zone, I hope that players that have been waiting and sitting on the fences come back or come to the game, because it's perfect for that that sweep spot that I think some people were kind of feeling a little stuck at, which that like 1920 area.
Yeah,
and I think this is going to be a good resource for them and a fun time. And so I'd say if you've been kind of sitting on the sides waiting, it's a good time to come back in.
Well, it's funny because I have seen with each, even like in the last patch, people are coming back. They're like, okay, let's see what they did now. And I think with this content, they'll come back too as well to check out. Because like you said, that gap, like level 20, it seems to be like, oh, where are we going to go now? Now they have a destination to go to with named, with loots, a raid. That's going to be a boon for you guys.
And I think as we sort of, the XP curve gets evened out a little bit better than it currently is. I think players that were feeling that way, it'll feel a little smoother. I totally get some people's perspective of like waiting for the 1.0. We are building, it's a fine line that we're towing right now. We're trying to build a game for the players that are playing the game, but ultimately it's that 1.0 release that we're building toward. But I would say, if it's a good opportunity to kind of get in early and help build the game too. We've had a lot of great feedback. I mean, from the players, some we've taken, some we haven't. Part of the reason why Ash Breathers was so successful, and I hope BRK as well, will be because players are playing the game and we're seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, and I just one last thing on another positive note, the fact that the Gadasi necklace quest, the fact that you can actually spawn a mob, that was a great achievement by you guys. Like I don't know anybody who hasn't done that quest. It really is, takes you all over the map. You get to meet everybody. You get to explore the towns and cities. So I just wanted to give you those accolades too, because you get within range there, and then you're fighting a boss, then a skeleton, and then it's really cool.
I think that was a good precursor to sort of start to test what we could and couldn't do, and then Eldrin was building on that, and hopefully the BRK will build on that. So we're constantly trying to improve and make things better, and yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Again, it's always a team effort. So I can't take solo credit. But yeah, I've always been an exploration guy. I as much as I like fighting and being at camps and hanging out with friends, like by nature, I'm I got a little bit of wanderlust. So I appreciate when you're going all over the map and talking to people and meeting people and finding out about the world. And again, everything that we do on the writing side is in service to the lore and what JN has built. And it's a matter of the best way of distributing that to the players.
Yep. And, to quote Tolkien here, which I know you appreciate, not all those who wander are lost.
Yes.
So, wow.
There you go.
Oh, that's true. That's good, man. You're a smart man.
I have my moments.
Well, David, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining. I know Rake was super excited. I mean, it's been a pleasure to talk to you and learn more about Pantheon and what's going on. It really was. And everybody, go to that Kickstarter, Jackrabbit.
Yeah.
Get him going. Get him onto that second book.
Yeah, let's get it out.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys having me, and I love what you guys are doing. I appreciate you asking me to come on. It was a no-brainer for me. Hopefully we come back and maybe get Joppa on.
That'd be great.
But yeah, I think any word out about the game right now, especially positive ones, are only benefits the community as a whole. So we thank you guys too.
And you guys are welcome. We're really happy to just try to get any positivity, any inclusivity, and that we can get with the community, because the Pantheon community really is very helpful. Sometimes people complain, sometimes people don't like this or that, but all in all, everybody really likes the game when we all have a lot of fun doing it, and we just want it to succeed. All of us.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, people think that we're soft, but like we appreciate the fans have been so vocal because it means they care. and they want to build this game as much as we do, and want to see it succeed just as much as we do. So yeah.
Yes, you guys have a great attitude towards it. Because for me personally, I'd get bogged down. Why am I doing this? But you guys have been focused and keeping it, true and to what Brad set out, and it's evolving, and I think it's evolving in a good way. So, each time you come, levels, and then you bring it up a next level, and then it'll be the best product on the market at one point. I truly believe in that. That's why I'm investing so much time in it
and effort.
So, kudos to you guys.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks again so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.